And we are now recording. This is the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting. This is a remote meeting. Today's date is October 26, 2021, and the time is 4:35. If you wish to, let's see, remote regular meeting, telephone number and call in 415-906-4659, meeting ID 342-637-276#. If you wish to make a statement during general public comment, please press *6 and unmute your telephone to speak. Please press *6 to mute your telephone once you are done with your statement. Remote access to information and participation. In accordance with Governor Newsom's Executive Order N-3320, declaring a state of emergency regarding the COVID-19 outbreak, and Mayor London and Breed's proclamation declaring a local emergency issued on February 25, 2020, including the guidance for gatherings issued by the San Francisco Department of Public Health officer, aggressive directives were issued to reduce the spread of COVID-19. On March 17, 2020, the Board of Supervisors authorized their board and committee meetings to convene remotely via Microsoft Teams and will allow remote public comment via video conference. Members of the public may participate by phone or may submit their comments by email to cheryl.leger@sfgov.org. That's CHERYL.LEGER@sfgov.org. All comments received will be made a part of the official record. Sunshine Ordinance Task Force agendas and their associated documents are available at sfbos.org/sunshine. As the COVID-19 disease progresses, please visit the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force website regularly to be updated on the current situation as it affects the legislative process. Meeting decorum. Any member of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force may call for decorum due to disorderly conduct of meeting participants. Person who engage in threatening and or menacing behavior may be asked to leave.
Thank you, Ms. Leger. Please call the first item.
Item number 1, call to order, roll call, and agenda changes. Roll call. Member Neighbors?
Present.
Member Neighbors present. Member Wong?
Present.
Member Wong present. Chair LaHood?
Present.
Chair LaHood present. We have a quorum. Ladies, are you aware of any agenda changes? Because I am not.
I am not aware of any agenda changes.
Okay. Okay, so shall I read item number 2?
Yes, please.
Approval of the August 24, 2021 Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting minutes. Now, at the September hearing, suggested comments and suggested comments were made available by those who said we needed to change the language, and those amendments were made. So do we want to discuss those minutes, or shall we move straight to a motion to approve?
Well, I want to open it up to my fellow task force members. Do you have any additional comments on the updated August minutes, or shall we move to public comment? Okay, let's open up for public comment. We will create a queue. Would anyone like to make public comment on the August minutes?
Warfield.
I'm not hearing. Oh, Mr. Warfield. Okay, you are first in line. Would anyone else like to make public comments on the August minutes? It's *6 to unmute yourself if you don't hear us acknowledging you.
Sullivan.
Mr. Sullivan, you are second in line. Would anyone else like to make public comments on the August minutes? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Leger, if you could let Mr. Warfield know when you're ready with the timer, that would be great.
Mr. Warfield, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Let me know when to start.
Go ahead, sir.
Beg your pardon?
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com. We can also be reached at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. First of all, you got what looks like to me the name, title, organization, contact information correct on item 2. It is sadly a relatively rare occurrence. It did not continue that way throughout the minutes. It seems like there's a game to leave out identifying information. On subsequent appearances, there's no mention other than my name, not what I'm representing or any titles or any contact information, which I almost always try to include. And that's on multiple items. It is really, I think, let's just say odd to have references to giving his contact information and things like that where those occur. I do think that it would have been useful, and it certainly would be useful to remind us what were the reasons for a month ago continuing the minutes. And I do think it's important to state what the changes are and where they are. With respect to, there was one thing that I thought was, and I'm not sure now, on item 3, public comment, it says, Mr. Warfield provided comments regarding public comment at Library Commission hearings. Well, what does that mean? And the fact that the general public is not allowed to make public comment. Well, I certainly would never say that. I myself am making public comment
30
quite
seconds.
regularly. Pardon?
30 seconds.
Thank you. And lots of people are able to make public comment. The fact that people are able to make public comment, or that I am, doesn't mean that the library has done a perfect job, or even a good job, of providing access to public comment. And I certainly would never say that there's an overall refusal to allow public comment. That just looks stupid and wrong. So I guess my time is running out. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sullivan, are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
So, first of all, Anonymous, number 3 sent you corrections for his thing on October 25th, 2021. A number of them, and I just hit the reload. I don't know, link for your agenda. None of those corrections have been made. And then earlier today, I sent suggested changes. On item 7, it says, Mr. Sullivan noted that record retention policy is that documents should be kept for 2 years. Suggested Mr. Sullivan noted that contract record retention policy for communication documents should be kept for 2 years, and others are for longer. And then on item number 8, Mr. Sullivan suggested that the commission run their system just like SOTF. I suggest Mr. Sullivan suggested that the commission run their public comments just like SOTF. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I would like to jump in with a couple of thoughts regarding Mr. Warfield's comment on public comment in number 3. Could we change that to, I do understand what he is saying. I think he was, I do recall him saying, and I think this would create the effect that he's looking for, if we change it to the fact that the general public is not consistently allowed to make public comment. I think it was that because of some of the the challenges that sometimes people weren't heard or were not, that sometimes things moved ahead too quickly before people were able to unmute themselves. Mr. Warfield, may I ask, is that what you meant? If we were to add consistently, would that give the meaning that you intended?
I would say allowed or enabled. I don't, allow sounds like it's intentional. Enabled just sounds more neutral, like they didn't, for one reason or another, they were not enabled. It could have been a mistake. It could have been poor procedures, and so on. So
how about this? How about not consistently? How about not consistently accommodated?
Well, that sounds like it's a generous option of the library to allow it or not. Maybe something like able to exercise their public comment rights.
Okay, that is many words. I'm trying to do this concisely with a few words, and I know I understand what you're trying to say, which is it's not that they were forbidding public comment, exactly, but they didn't always make it. Sure, did not consistently enable. Okay, okay.
I think enable would do it unless you find that troublesome.
I mean, as an editor, I find it a little bit it's kind of passive and backwards, but in speaking, but in terms of conveying your meaning, I do think it does it effectively. So, Ms. Leger, if we could change the wording there to that the general public is not consistently enabled to make public comment. I have to say, Mr. Warfield, that's not great language, but if it gets your meaning across, I'll accept it. Okay. Mr. Sullivan, I had a question for you. Yes, we did receive Anonymous's edits, but I believe those were for the September minutes. We're looking at the August minutes.
Okay, let me get to his.
Am I right?
Yes, those are for the September minutes, and so were my comments. So
okay, then we're going to hold on your comments because I was going to bring those up for the September minutes. But it sounds like, and Mr. Warfield, I did want to address your, because I do see where the meaning was different than what you intended, and I want to accommodate that. I know we've gone back and forth on reciting title and contact information throughout, and I'm still going to continue things the way that we have them at the moment. I just, and members, I'd like to actually offer this to you. Do you think that this is the right call? We do, and I'm glad. And there's been a lot of care and attention put into making sure that names, titles, organizations, and contact information is correct. I think it's appropriate to have it listed once on first reference, but not throughout the minutes, because, and could I get a verbal agreement there? Because everyone, I see heads nodding, but everyone can't see us.
Yeah, this is Member Wong. I agree with that. We want to keep the minutes, readable for those people who can't attend these meetings. And I think once, especially at the beginning of the minutes, makes the most sense.
Okay.
And this is Member Neighbors. I agree also.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. This is very helpful, and we do appreciate your comments. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Member Wong. I will make a motion to approve the August 24th, 2021 compliance and amendments meeting minutes.
With that one modification, is that correct?
Yeah, I made it in my computer, so I'll upload it tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Second. Who want you, Chair LaHood, you're going to second?
Sure, I will second.
Do we want public comment on the motion?
No, we took public comment before, and this is a minor change. I will flip things around on the next version. I don't think we need additional public comment at this time.
All right, shall we move to item number 3?
No, we need a vote.
Vote, I'm sorry. I apologize. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Chair LaHood?
Aye.
Chair LaHood, aye. Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Moved by Member Wong, seconded by Chair LaHood to approve the August 2021 Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting minutes with one modification.
Thank you. Please call the next item.
Item number 3, approval of the September 28, 2021 Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting minutes.
Okay, so these were the September minutes, and Ms. Leger, I wanted to ask, I know we received the written comments from Anonymous after you put these out. Do you have a version where they have been incorporated, or is that something that we should discuss now?
The only version that I have is the current version. I don't know what the date of the current version is. Anonymous is public comment. He submitted written public comment. Is that what you're saying?
He submitted an email on October 25th with suggested corrections.
This is Member Wong. I think we received a response from Ms. Leger on those changes and corrections, and I thought they were made actually.
Okay.
But that would have been yesterday.
Yeah,
so.
That's my recollection too, that if Anonymous sent them to me, I would have incorporated them into the minutes. So.
Okay, so that the version we are looking at online then incorporates these corrections.
I believe it does.
Okay.
The version that I included in the agenda packet is the most current version that I
Okay. Okay, but so then if he sent these comments after the agenda packet went out,
then I don't believe he sent these comments after the agenda packet went out. But for the September 28th hearing? Or today's hearing?
For today's, so he sent an email on October 25th about the September minutes. And yes, you replied, changes, corrections are noted and made.
Okay, then I did them.
Okay.
I didn't, Laurie?
I don't believe so. I'm looking at, for instance, one of the things that he marked was, for instance, he says, when he talks about, this is public comment under item 6, and in our current, or in my packet, it says Anonymous 3 noted that he, oh wait, not there, under the amended motion, it says Anonymous 3 noted thanks to member neighbors for seeing the source document and is expressed frustration that there were 9 requests. And in his letter, he says, it says that's incorrect. I'd suggest it says instead that thanked member neighbors for seeing the source document and expressed frustration that OEWD failed to acknowledge that there were 9 requests, which is substantively different. So that's one example, which makes me think that.
That's what I have in my version of the minutes, and that would be the most current version.
Okay.
You know, You know what I'm wondering is I'm wondering if when you update, I mean, because I'm reloading the file to see if something changes. So we're clicking on the links that are in the version that was sent out, and I don't know if maybe it doesn't automatically update. Does anyone have a suggestion or a thought on what might be happening here?
I mean, in the past, it hasn't automatically updated. So we've run into this before where, you know, Ms. Leger has pointed out that she's made the corrections, but none of us have been able to see them. But, you know, I think we've brought them back around to double check them, or sometimes we just, you know, agree that she, knows what she's talking about.
Right.
Yeah. But I don't think that I think most of the time we can't see if she's made this correction. I don't recall seeing them after the packet's been out.
Right. Ms. Leger, has this worked otherwise with other committees where you've been able to make changes to the packets and then just by refreshing people can access the new documents?
I don't refresh the packets. I mean, once I post it, unless somebody says, no, that document is incorrect, then I can make a modification.
Okay.
I'd like to see what's online.
Yeah, because when we're looking at item number 3, and member neighbors, can you point us again to which page that particular comment was on that you were referring to?
Sure, it's on P11.
Yeah, it's on page 4 of the minutes.
Right. And it's under the amended motion. So it's the last public comment on the page.
You said on P11?
Yes, which is page 4.
Okay.
The P11.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. I'm cross-referencing here. Yeah, it does. It does look like this, Ms. Leger. I think the version that you may have updated is not the version that we're looking at.
Yep, I see that now.
Okay.
Apologies, ladies.
That's okay. I mean, I don't know how you could have, because his comments came through on the 25th and it's the 26th. So if these were yeah.
Made yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't be noted in the packet.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to suggest, because I do, so essentially it looks like it looks like there are 3 specific changes that are requested, and in fact, it's made convenient because they are all bolded and underlined. I'm going to read these into the record just so that other people understand what we're talking about. If anyone's looking at the agenda under item number 19061, it currently says anonymous number 3 noted that he did not hear the beginning of the case, but did hear the end and generally agrees because OEWD and Ms. Thompson should be directed to and provide those records from Parks Alliance. He requested that it be the last part of the sentence be modified to and generally agrees because OEWD and Ms. Thompson should be directed to and provide those records for all of the 9 original Hooper requests from Park Alliance. The other change is for the same file number under the second public comment in that file. It says anonymous number 3 noted thanks to member neighbors for seeing the source document and expressed frustration that there were 9 requests. He asked that be changed to and expressed frustration that OEWD failed to acknowledge that there were 9 requests. And the last one was just, I think this was just a typo under file number 20082. It says anonymous number 3 stated that the law provides that everyone beg the same time to speak, and it should be get the same time to speak. So I would recommend that we make those 3 changes, which won't take much time. And in fact, since I've read that into the record, and even though the email was lengthy, the changes were very specific. Does someone feel comfortable making a motion to approve the minutes with those 3 changes?
This is Member Wong. I would feel comfortable with that. The one thing I will note is I think there's actually a small teeny tiny typo on P11.
Okay.
Under the second motion, I think it should be SOTF administrator instead of SFOT administrator.
Good eye. I didn't even see that.
Can you tell me what case that is?
That is under. Sure, it's under agenda item 6, file number 19061. On page P11, yeah.
I see it.
So, yeah, so I don't know if I mentioned this is Member Wong, but I will make a motion to approve the September 28th minutes with the changes suggested by anonymous number 3, as well as the small typo fix on P11.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Yeah, this is member neighbors. I second.
Okay. And Ms. Leger, I think since you also have those in writing, you're clear on the changes that this motion is for?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Let's open this up for public comment. We'll do the same thing as last time. We'll create a queue. Would anyone like to make public comment on the motion to approve the September minutes?
Warfield.
Mr. Warfield, you're first in line. Anyone else?
Sullivan.
Mr. Sullivan, you're second in line. Anyone else wishing to make public comment on the September minutes?
David Steinberg. Hooper.
Okay, I heard Steinberg and then Hooper. So we've got Mr. Warfield, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Steinberg, Mr. Hooper. Is that correct? Is there anyone else who'd like to make public comment?
John Hooper.
Yes, I heard you, Mr. Hooper. You'll be fourth in line. Ms. Leger, when you're ready with the timer, if you could let Mr. Warfield know he is first in line.
Ready, Mr. Warfield?
Just let me know when to go.
Go ahead, sir.
This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com and at P.O. Box by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. Once again, we have some games. It seems as though our group is Library Users Assen with a period at the end. I guess that saves you 7 characters, but since you have to add a period, you save 6 characters by making the abbreviation. I don't know why you can't have the full name, and I believe that happens twice. I think actually you give the full name of the group somewhere else in the meeting, in the meeting minutes. There's something that's very concerning, and that is there's a spot where you have a member of the public, I believe it's item 5, giving their written public comment, which I presume is a 150-word summaries that people are entitled to file with you and have in the minutes, if they wish. But the law requires, and I think proper action requires, that you provide minutes, including what is required, which is a summary of what each person said, and whether or not they're for whatever was taken up. And I don't see that happening on item 5. You need to be responsible for a fair and accurate minutes, including in particular specifically specified a summary of what each person said and their name if they gave it. So that's very troubling that there should be an impression that if you want to get anything accurate in the minutes, you have to write it yourself. That should be an extra if for some reason it's particularly important how it's worded or whatever. With respect to another item,
30 seconds.
On item 8, I certainly did not say, as far as I know, that there, in describing our complaint, Mr. Warfield also noted there have been technical issues at many Library Commission meetings causing the inability of people to make their comments. I did not say anything about technical issues. It was the Library Commission representative who said there were technical problems, and that is very important because when I followed up subsequently, it turned out that according to the head of the library, there were no technical problems. I didn't say that. The Library Commission rep said that.
Thank you, Mr. Warfield. Just because I want to keep track of, no, let's go on with Mr. Sullivan. I'll make a note of what I want to add.
Mr. Sullivan, are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, I apologize for my last comments. It's multitasking, unfortunately. So on item, I sent an email to Ms. Leisure today with these requests. On item 7, it says, the second sentence of my public comment says, Mr. Sullivan noted the record retention policy is that documents should be kept for 2 years. I suggest Mr. Sullivan noted that contract record retention policies for communication documents should be kept for 2 years, longer for other. On item 8, it says, Mr. Sullivan suggested the commission run their system like the SOTF. Suggested Mr. Sullivan suggests the commission run their public comments just like the SOTF. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Steinberg, I believe you are next.
Thank you. Just a somewhat minor thing, but given the fact that at the last commission hearing you were talking a lot about, now I had a task force committee meeting. You're talking a lot about people's names being right and how you're going to be referred to. My name is misspelled in a number of times in the minutes. September, once in item 3, 5 times in item 7, 5 times in item 9, and 3 times in item 10. STANBERG, which it also appears correct a few times, but it was overwhelmingly spelled BURG. So just thought I would offer that. Once a copy editor, always a copy editor.
Mr. Steinberg, thank you. We will fix that.
Thank you. We'll correct that.
Mr. Hooper, you are next. Ms. Leger, are you ready with the timer?
Yes, I am. Mr. Hooper, you ready?
I'm ready, thank you. I'm speaking just to concur and support the suggested changes submitted by Anonymous 3 yesterday on October 25th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hooper. Okay, I took notes, but I may be asking some of the speakers to verify what they requested. Let's see, Mr. Warfield, Ms. Leger, can we change anywhere where it says ASSN, make it that association spelled out? And in the case where Mr. Warfield, now I have to go back and find it, it was with the library. Okay, this was item number 8, file number 20082. Let's just strike the sentence that says Mr. Warfield also noted there have been technical issues. Just strike the whole sentence. And my guess is that, yeah, that was just a misattribution of something that the Library Commission said.
Just the last sentence, Mr. Warfield also noted.
Yeah, just strike that sentence. For Mr. Sullivan, he said, so item number 7, and he had said that the retention policy is that, let's change that to communication documents should be kept for 2 years. Mr. Sullivan, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and then actually, while I've got you here.
Just a second, Lila. I'm just finding it on my computer. Let's see. We want to say Mr. Sullivan stated that the bulk of the money OEWD received was $25,000, and because the contract is with City and County of San Francisco, not OEWD, Mr. Sullivan noted what?
That the records retention policy is that communication documents should be kept for 2 years.
Okay, got that.
Okay, and then Mr. Sullivan, forgive me, your other request regarding run public comments like SOTF, was where is that?
Item number 8, the public
Thank
comments.
You. Okay. Okay, so at the bottom of page 6 or P13, it says Mark Sullivan suggested that commission run it should be public comments, just like the SOTF, not their system. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then let us please correct Mr. Stein, the spelling of Mr. Steinberg's name throughout.
It's fine. It's Mr. Sullivan said, Mark Sullivan suggested that the public comments.
No, suggested that the commission run their public comments, just like the SOTF. So replace the word system with public comments.
Okay, got that.
Okay. I believe that was everything because Mr. Hooper was just supporting the other changes that we already went through that Anonymous had suggested. So Ms. Leger, do you feel comfortable with all of the changes that we've just made?
Yeah, I'm making them into the document.
Perfect.
As we speak.
Okay.
Mr. Steinberg's name wasn't spelled correctly. I know where.
Okay. I'm hearing a little bit of background noise, so anyone who is not actively speaking, please make sure that your audio is muted. Okay. All right. Ms. Leger, whenever you're ready, I think, members, are we ready to take a vote on these, or do we, since we had a motion, do we need to modify to accept the additional changes as stated?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So
Okay,
would the maker of the motion like to amend the motion?
Yes, I will amend the motion to include all of the changes just stated.
And does the seconder of the motion agree?
I do.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm typing this into the record. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So do we want to take a vote?
Yes, please.
Okay. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Chair LaHood?
Aye.
Chair LaHood, aye. Moved by Member Wong, seconded by Member Neighbors to approve the minutes of the September 28, 2021 Compliance and Amendments Committee minutes with recommended amendments.
Okay. Thank
Eric?
you. Yes. Let's please call the next item.
Item number 4, public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda.
Okay, we are going to create a queue again. Who would like to make public comment on anything not on today's agenda?
Warfield.
Mr. Warfield, you are first in line. Who else would like to make public comment?
Sullivan.
Mr. Sullivan, you are second in line. Who else would like to make public comment? Okay, I'm not hearing anyone else, but we'll call for public comment again after Mr. Sullivan in case anyone had trouble unmuting. Remember, it's *6 both to mute and unmute yourself. Ms. Leger, when you're ready with the timer, we'll start with Mr. Warfield.
Mr. Warfield, are you ready?
I heard some burbling. I'm sorry. What?
Are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com and at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117. I guess I wanted to make 3 comments. 3 topics. First of all, I would like to urge you and the full task force to be strict with regard to the law. There have been times when it's been notably not strict, and in fact, that hurts members of the public. As an example, there were disparate consequences for somebody not showing up when Mr. Chafee this spring didn't show, although he gave reasons in writing why he wanted to go ahead without or didn't need to go, his presence wasn't needed. He was denied a hearing. Yet when other times, other instances, respondents didn't show up, they are required by law to appear. And you sometimes give them a violation on that, but many times you do not. So the folks who violate the law got sometimes only, but sometimes not, a violation. Mr. Chafee, who is not required by law to provide his presence, gets denied a hearing. Second thing is with regard to truthfulness. There are times, unfortunately, when testimony in hearings involves incorrect, or if you like, at times untruthful testimony. And I think that needs to be dealt with because, as an example, there are times when you will ask a question of one party or the other, and the other party is not given a chance to say, wait a minute, that's not quite right, or that's totally wrong, or whatever else they want to say about, for example, a factual matter. So I think that you need to work on truthfulness, and especially if untruths are given to defend against a violation. Finally, I want to repeat, I consider public comment very important. And when I give contact information for Library Users Association and so on, it is to replicate what happens in a public meeting. If you were to hide in a public meeting behind a curtain or have each member of your group behind a curtain, I think people would be troubled by that. If you had members of the public in little booths so they couldn't see each other and couldn't talk to each other at any time. I think that would be a problem. Yet, this setup is essentially everybody is in a booth, and I can't say to somebody, that was great what you said, could we talk about that, or could I ask you a question, etc., and vice versa. And that's why I give public comment with contact information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warfield. Mr. Sullivan, are you ready? And Ms. Leger, when you're ready with the timer, if you could please let Mr. Sullivan know.
Mr. Sullivan, are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
This comment can be applied to the Hunters Point Shipyard Citizen Advisory Committee. The CAC is most likely a passive meeting body, but one way to determine a passive meeting body is whether the advice they give goes to a policy body that allows public comment on the forming of policy. What is the process that makes a policy from their advice? Section 67.4.3. Such gatherings of a business nature need not provide opportunities for comment by members of the public, although the person presiding may, in his or her discretion, entertain such questions or comments from spectators as may be relevant to the business of the gathering. I agree with Mr. Pilpel that standing alone, this can be read as ambiguous on the word discretion as applied to public comment to a person or allowing for all, but this clause does not stand alone. Section 67.1G says, however, when a person or entity is before a policy body or passive meeting body, that person and the public has the right to an open and public process. Deconstructed, when the public comment is allowed and a person indicates they want to speak, they are before that body. They have a right to an open process. Here means, from the dictionary, to make accessible, available, or access. This implies equality. The public process part of this clause goes to the other definition of open as an exposed, viewable public. Writers of this clause would not use open and public process to be redundant. Important. Section 67.1G states this open and public process requirement is for a policy or passive meeting body. So logically, a person must be treated with the same requirements of the clause no matter which body they are before. If the person presiding can have discretion of who can speak in public comment opportunity, then that would also pertain to a policy body. And clearly this is false. Clearly, in a passive meeting body, the discretion that can be exercised is whether the public question or comments will be allowed for all people who wish to participate. As required, this is looking at the code in the broadest interpretation for public access rights. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Does anyone else wish to make public comment, general public comment at this time? This is last call. Press *6 to unmute yourself.
I do have something to say that addresses Mr. Warfield. Public comment. But after everybody else has had a chance to speak.
Yes. Is there anyone else who wishes to make general public comment? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Leger, what would you like to add?
Well, I just wanted to add that when we notice a hearing and we provide the complaint summaries on those hearings, we specifically state to the complainant and the respondent that their presence is required for the hearing. So this, Mr. Warfield says Mr. Chafee didn't show up. It's not part of our processes to hear a complaint unless the petitioner is available and present at the hearing, because if they aren't, that is when a complaint will be tabled and closed. And if the petitioner wants to reopen their claim, they are welcome to do so within 60 days of the hearing date. And they are notified of that option.
Thank you for the clarification. We appreciate it.
I said,
okay.
What does not require the
We're not having a discussion about this right now. We're not having a discussion about this.
Well, why are you allowing the person who's not even a part of the meeting to speak to counter something that a member of the public has said? She's out of order.
Okay, Mr. Warfield, I will give you. I'll give you a 1 minute to respond. What would you like to say in response?
What I think I said was that the law does not specify that a person has to come personally to hearings. The law does specify that the respondent must send an authorized representative. That's what I was saying. And what I said was that Mr. Chafee did not violate a law, yet was denied a hearing on the basis of his action, while there are other times when you allow respondents to not show and not have any consequence. And it was part of my sense that you need to be strict because that's important. Otherwise, lack of strictness usually redounds to the negative result for the member of the public or the complainant and not the respondent.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Warfield. We're going to move on to the next item because we did not have on the agenda that we were going to discuss this particular issue, but thank you for bringing it up in public comment. This is something that we can discuss with our chair and see how he would like to handle it from here. Please call the next item.
Item number 5, file number 19061, complaint filed by John Hooper against the Office of Economic and Workforce Development for violating Administrative Code Section 6721B by failing to respond to a public records request in a timely and or complete manner.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want the preamble?
Sure, please.
On July 7, 2021, the task force found that the Office of Economic and Workforce Development violated Administrative Code Section 6721B by failing to provide records in a complete and or timely manner and referred the matter to the Compliance and Amendments Committee with the request that the records be provided to the complainant and the Compliance and Amendments Committee. It was also requested that Mr. Mark Sullivan, who's a respondent, assist Mr. Hooper to organize these documents.
Okay, so first I'd like to ask, I know Mr. Hooper and Mr. Sullivan are here. Do we have someone on behalf of the respondent?
Mary Ann Thompson.
Okay, Ms. Thompson, thank you for being here today. I believe that there has been an exchange of records. I'm
it's
sorry?
Mary Ann Thompson, and I'm here.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Thank you. I can hear you now. Somebody muted me.
Okay, great. I think there was a little bit of a lag. So I'm going to start with Mr. Hooper. Mr. Hooper, I believe that you were provided with some records at this point. Can you let us know, did you receive those documents?
I think you're referring to records that came via Mr. Heckel?
Yes.
Yes, I received those documents. Thank you.
Okay. And are you satisfied at this point that you have received the documents that you requested?
I think we've probably flogged this horse long enough.
Okay.
I don't really know if there are other documents. The documents I received via Mr. Heckel a couple of weeks ago are documents I already had in my possession. But I think I should just take that, interpret that as the Office of Economic and Workforce Development being overly thorough and meticulous in sending them a second time.
Okay, well, thank you. It's good to hear that. And Mr. Sullivan, I know you've been helping Mr. Hooper with this. I don't know, do you have anything else to add on this matter? Mr. Sullivan, I'm not hearing you. Are you still at the meeting?
Star 6, Mr.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It just takes the delay when you do the star 6. So and then you can't hear anybody either. And I mean, I'm fine. It's whatever, Mr. Hooper. I was only made a respondent because I was asked to assist.
Okay.
But, also, Ms. Leisure sent a email with 3 attachments to recently on 10/21, just stating that from Mary Ann Thompson.
Okay. So, and Ms. Thompson, it sounds as though Mr. Hooper at this point is satisfied. Do you have anything else to add at this point?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Members of the task force or members of the committee, do you have any other questions or anything to add, or would someone like to make a motion? And actually, before I ask that, Ms. Leger, at this point, because this was for compliance, we would then be making a motion. Is it to close this case?
Yes.
Okay. Members, do you have any other questions, or would someone like to? Actually, let me ask you, do you have any other questions? Okay, I will make a motion to close this case. Do we have a second?
This is Member Neighbors, and I'll second.
Okay, now we'd like to open it for public comment. So we're going to open up for public comment on file number 19061. Again, this was the order of determination was already found. This was for compliance. And at this point, the petitioner has received responsive documents responsive to his request. We'll take public comment now for members of the public not party to this case. Would anyone like to make public comment? Remember, if I'm not saying your name, it might be because I don't hear you, and you should press *6. Would anyone like to make public comment?
What are we making public comment on, please?
I hear something vague
Yeah, I'm
voice.
hearing someone who very quiet, but I can't hear you. Is someone trying to make public comment?
What are we making public comment on, please?
Oh, this is item number 5.
Thank you.
Did you hear the motion?
I did not.
Okay. We have a motion to close the case because the petitioner is satisfied that responsive records have been provided. Would you like to make public comment?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Warfield, you are first in line. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment? Okay, hearing none. I will ask again after Mr. Warfield is done. Ms. Leger, if you're ready with the timer, please let Mr. Warfield know.
Mr. Warfield, are you ready to speak?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. I believe that the Sunshine Ordinance has time limits and consequences for not meeting them. I certainly would like to hear a discussion about what those are and how they relate to this. There was a violation found, but I believe there are very sharp, very limited time limits on complying with the law, complying with an order of determination. I'm unfortunately not familiar with this case particularly, but I believe if there's the schedule that I believe is in effect, non-compliance within a very short time, like 5 days, is supposed to lead to a referral to another authority like the Ethics Commission and so on. So I'd like to hear that considered rather than just dropping the case because the material was apparently provided, but very late. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else like to make public comment on item number 5?
Yes, David Steinberg.
Mr. Steinberg, Ms. Leger will let you know when she's ready with the timer.
Just as a little quick note, David, I'm very sorry for misspelling your name.
That's okay, thanks.
All right, you may begin.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one quick comment, mostly in response to what Mr. Warfield said. 2 things. If the order of determination for OEWD is the same as time-wise as the one for Public Works, we have not received, and so I'm assuming OEWD has not actually received an order of determination. So the amount of time that is allowed in this case doesn't apply because we haven't actually received the orders. Further to Mr. Hooper's point, these are records that he already received. So as far as I could tell from having followed this case for 2 years, all the records that he received were not belated. He just got duplicate and triplicate and quadruplicate copies of the same documents. So, we've been going through this exercise for quite some time, but it sounds like, Mr. Hooper has everything that he was going to get when he first came to the city, at least to OEWD. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make public comment? We're on item number 5. This is last call for public comment. Okay, and remember, if I'm not calling your name and you're speaking, you might need to press *6. This is last call for public comment. Okay, public comment is closed. Ms. Leger, please call the vote.
Chair LaHood?
Aye.
Chair LaHood, aye. Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Moved by Chair LaHood, seconded by Member Neighbors to close the matter because the petitioner is satisfied with the records that have been provided.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry?
I said that's it?
Yes.
That's the motion, yeah.
Yes. Let's please call the next item.
Item number 6, file number 19062, complaint filed by John Hooper against Public Works for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721 by failing to respond to a public records request in a timely and or complete manner. On July 7, the task force found the Department of Public Works violated Administrative Code Sunshine Ordinance Section 6721C by failing to provide the requested records in a complete and or timely manner, and orders that the Department of Public Works assist Mr. Hooper in identifying the existence, form, and nature of the records from Parks Alliance that may be available to them within 14 days, and refers the matter to the Compliance and Amendments Committee for monitoring.
Okay, well, I know all of the parties are here. Mr. Hooper, I'd like to ask you first. Have you received the responsive documents that you requested?
I have received some documents. I believe Mr. Steinberg made the request as he was asked to of Parks Alliance on 9/28 for the 9 full records, and I can't refer to the minutes right now while we're talking, but I believe that Parks Alliance responded on October 8th. It was an odd response, which I note for your consideration. Someone named Kirsten, I think, at Parks Alliance, responded to Mr. Steinberg's question by saying, to my knowledge, we don't have any existing contracts with DPW. Well, that wasn't really the question. So I think it's more a question that goes to the integrity of your committee and the task force than whether I personally am satisfied. There seems to still be some, and I think Mr. Steinberg did what he was asked to do, but it seems to me there's still some weaseling around in terms of the response that he received and then I received from Parks Alliance. But I think that's really a matter for you committee members to decide whether, your chain is being jerked.
Okay.
That's all I've got.
Okay, Mr. Steinberg.
Yes, ma'am.
So first of all, thank you for sending out that request quickly after we initially requested it. Can you speak to Mr. Hooper's question regarding the wording of Parks Alliance response and your thoughts on that? Do you feel as though if you could just respond to his comments, that would be helpful.
Sure. Well, one of essentially what we've been saying all along is that we gave Mr. Hooper everything we had, and that we didn't. The contract for this grant was with OEWD, and therefore we didn't have any. Not just obligation, but no authority to ask them for anything additional. But the task force decided otherwise. So, as Mr. Hooper said, we complied. While the hearing was still going on the 28th, I sent the Parks Alliance the letter as requested. What they sent was what they sent. I again, wasn't my contract, so I'm just taking it on faith that whatever they gave me is what was responsive. The fact is they you might try to quibble, but they responded. What they said was accurate. There was no contract with Public Works for these the benefit district programs. Formation committees and steering committees however it was worded, they weren't with Public Works. They were absolutely accurate. They were with OEWD. And as Member Schmidt said at the task force, when I said, well, OEWD said they gave them everything. I can't know that for sure. So I had to go and ask, and that's what they gave you. So I gave me, which I gave you. So I really don't have a response. Whatever they gave me, I turned over.
Okay, and as far as the wording of, we don't have any existing contracts with DPW, were there? Was there a previous contract or around this matter, or there? I know the case that we're talking about, you said there wasn't a contract there, but is there anything else to say about that particular wording, or is it just that there's no contract with DPW around this matter?
That's my understanding. I mean, Public Works does have other, I believe, does have other contracts with Parks Alliance for completely unrelated things. But not for this, which is, I guess, what this person was referring to. Unfortunately, we spent a couple of years going through this process where Mr. Hooper's isn't getting anything more than what we gave him in 2019, because we didn't have additional records at the time. We gave him everything we had. These new records these two documents that were turned over, apparently had already been provided to him by OEWD. But if this is the end of the journey, that's quite nice. And I will, as much as I enjoy spending time with the committee, I will let other people meet with you on Tuesday night rather than coming back.
So, thank you, Mr. Hooper. I do hear what you're saying regarding the wording of that response does seem a little bit oddly constructed, but based on what Mr. Steinberg has responded and based on the documents that you have received so far, specifically with this case, are you satisfied that you've received responsive documents that DPW is able to provide?
Well, before I answer your question directly, which I will in a minute, I do think it's important to remind the committee that Mr. Steinberg often leaves out an important part of this picture, and that is that although no longer the case, I believe, at the time that we're talking about when the city government was promoting green benefit districts in various parts of town, specifically the Mission Dolores area, the Department of Public Works had a full-time employee, Jonathan Goldberg at the time was his name, who was on the staff of the Department of Public Works and worked full-time on the Mission Dolores Green Benefit District. And it's for that reason, and I think it's important not to omit that point, that Mr. Steinberg has been kept involved and that your committee and the full task force has not seen fit to release the Department of Public Works, as Mr. Steinberg has attempted strenuously to do for the past 2 years. We don't have a contract, therefore we don't know nothing. Of course, that's not true. Not Mr. Steinberg, the Department of Public Works was in the very middle of this whole thing with a guy in their full employ, attending every single meeting, developing mailing lists, telling them how to go about pushing this crazy idea, and so on and so forth. So, to answer the question you originally asked, I don't know, and maybe it's the kind of thing other members of the public ought to say something about. I'm not really sure it should be the decision of a given petitioner whether a particular question has been asked, or whether it should really be the decision of your committee and the task force on whether your standards have been met. So I feel ambiguous about, on the one hand, of course, we all want this thing to be over and done with. And I have grave concerns that any more information would be forthcoming, even if we put the Parks Alliance executive director on the rack. But I don't know whether the standard should be, well, Mr. Hooper, are you satisfied? Then close the case. So what do you think? I'm asking the members of the committee, what do you think the standard should be?
Well, Mr. Hooper, this is challenging, and this is a challenge that we face all the time. I do believe that Mr. Steinberg has complied with what we requested. It's also clear that Parks Alliance, the brief response that we got is not inaccurate. Members, I don't know. Do you have additional thoughts on this? I mean, you're right. It is a judgment call. Have we received everything that we are going to receive for this particular request? Members, do you have any thoughts on this, or I mean, as far as DPW goes, I do feel as though they have complied with our request.
This is Member Wong. Yeah, I feel like these types of situations are pretty tough in that, as they say, our task force doesn't have teeth in the way that it necessarily should, and so we have to constantly juggle both sides of the petitioner and the respondent, and we're required to trust both sides as well. And so I agree with Chair LaHood in her assessment that I think DPW has technically complied.
this is member Neighbors. I agree with member Wong in the sense of, we don't have the teeth for this particular meal. At the same time, and I know I've said this again, I think Mr. Hooper makes a truly compelling point when he brings up the former full-time position of a staffer on this project, which means it's very unlikely that there's not additional documentation that was produced in the course of those relationships as that person began to promote this model at community meetings in town, not on his own time, but in an official capacity. So while I don't believe that there is anything that we can do to more deeply satisfy this request or create the leverage that it would take to get more documents, I can't say that I'm satisfied or I believe that there aren't more documents, but I can say that I don't believe that we're going to get any more documents than we have right now. And so I'm willing to stop spinning our wheels with it. But I definitely want Mr. Hooper to know that I sympathize with his frustration in this.
Chairman,
And
I
hope it's not a continuing issue that we're having with Public Works.
Was that Mr. Steinberg?
Yeah. Can I just give you
Sure.
some information that might help you?
Sure.
Sure. And Mr. Hooper's correct. We did have a person whose title is Green Benefits District Manager, and that's where I got the records that I did release to him. It's not that we didn't release documents to him. I released, going back through my notes, 240 pages initially for this request, plus two other requests that he and Mr. Tomasevich submitted. There were another 600 pages. Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Tomasevich, and Mr. Hooper combined have submitted more than 40 records requests related to Green Benefits District, and I have released hundreds, if not thousands, of, actually no, I know that there've been thousands, probably almost tens of thousands of records to them. So it's not that we said we didn't have anything. That's where I got those records, was from Mr. Goldberg, and in some cases an IT search and contract administration. It's the point all along has been, I've said we gave you everything we had. If the Parks Alliance had more, then that's what our process has been all about, is having us ask Parks Alliance if they had anything more. We certainly did have records, and I've given him, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages in response to this request. So yes, we did turn over records. There's no question that Mr. Goldberg was involved in working on green benefit districts, and that's why we have the records that we gave him.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sullivan, are you still here? Is Mr. Sullivan still here? If you're speaking, I can't hear you. You might need to press *6.
Hello.
Hi, I'm calling on you because I know you have submitted some comments with regard to this case as well. Are you as familiar with this one as you were with the previous one, or not to the same degree?
Yes, I'm familiar with it, but am I giving up my public comments?
Oh, do you want me to? Well, members, he's not formally associated with this, but has previously commented. Should we, You know what, Mr. Sullivan, if you want to stay out, I'll just let you speak at public comment if you prefer that. But
I mean, I'll answer questions, but I'm not willing to give up public comment.
well, then I'm going to not pull you into this conversation. We'll let you stay a member of the public. Task force members, I don't know that there's I am inclined at this point to close this case. I know that we have received other we have other cases related to the work that the city has done on green benefits districts. I'm not I expect those questions to continue to arise. I mean, we still, as I said, we still have some active cases open. I don't know that there's any more to do with this particular request. Do you any further thoughts, or should we entertain a motion to close this case? Okay. I do want to hear public comment on this. I will make a motion to close this case. Do we have a second?
This is Member Wong. I will second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion out there. We'd like to hear public comment on this. Ms. Leger, as you're getting ready with the timer, I'd like to create a queue. Who would like to make public comment on this case?
Sullivan.
Mr. Sullivan, you are first in line. Would anyone else like to make public comment in this case? We'll create a queue. I'm not hearing anyone else. If you're speaking and I'm not calling your name, you may need to unmute yourself. You'd need to press *6. Okay, Mr. Sullivan, we'll start with you, and then I will put out another call for public comment in case anyone was having trouble with their mute-unmute function. Ms. Leger, when you're ready with the timer, please let Mr. Sullivan know.
Mr. Sullivan, are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, the first thing I want to say is that Mr. Steinberg constantly says that the contract is not with Public Works. But what the full task force said, it doesn't really matter whether it's with him or not. He still has the responsibility to go to the Park Alliance to get the records. And they should be the same records that OEWT got. The contract, in the contract, it actually says it's with the city and not with the specific department. The contract also has Mr. Goldberg, the Green Benefit District manager, having to approve all the things before the Park Alliance could get paid. You can't allow a third party to control government or the city's public records. So the fact that they don't have any existing contract with DBW doesn't matter. They still have an obligation to produce those records. Mr. Steinberg continually conflates me with two other people. One person I don't hardly even know, Mr. Tomasiewicz or whatever, and he's going back years. I met Mr. Tomasiewicz like once in my lifetime, and I think he made a public record request like 4 years ago. And he's conflating us all as like one person making thousands of records and saying thousands of records, but that doesn't matter. It's what this Mission Dolores, what Mr. Hooper is thing. And so I don't think he seems to understand that, and he doesn't understand that he has an obligation, whether or not he believes that his department holds the contract or not. It doesn't matter. He still can't allow a third party to control the records. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Do we have any other members of the public not party to this case who would like to make public comment on the motion?
Yes, please, Warfield.
Mr. Warfield, you are next in line. Before you start, is there anyone else who is having trouble unmuting themselves who would like to make public comment after Mr. Warfield? Okay, I'm not hearing anyone yet, but we will do a last call. Ms. Leger, please let Mr. Warfield know when you're ready with the timer.
Mr. Warfield, are you ready?
I believe so. Let me know when to start.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, libraryusers.com, and by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. We're not a party to this complaint, and we're actually not particularly familiar with it, unfortunately. But I would say, first of all, I hope that you listen closely to Mr. Sullivan. And second of all, I appreciated what Ms. Neighbors said up to a point anyway, and that is if you have a problem with your powers of actually finding some kind of a legal violation, you certainly have the power, which I have mentioned many times this year at meetings. You have a great deal of discretion and power in Section 67.30 and beyond to advise, to recommend, even to propose amendments to the law. Basically anybody that you think where it might do some good. And so if you feel frustrated that you can't correct something that you think is wrong, I would urge you to consider what possibilities you have other than just finding a strictly legal issue, or an ability to find, if you like, a guilty verdict, and to use that impression that you have, that knowledge that you have, that concern that you have, and make it into something that would be useful in this case. Whether that's a letter, whether that's a recommendation, including going to the Board of Supervisors, including sending something to the Board of Supervisors or anybody else that you or possibly the complainant might think would be useful. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Warfield. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment on this motion? Hearing none. Members, I do hear the comments that people are making about this, and it does seem that, and I know we've talked about this in the full task force hearings as well, that it's very challenging when the city is working with third-party contractors, and this has come up in many, many cases, and even in the contracts when it says that these third parties are to provide certain documents and records to the city, that the city does not always receive those items that it was meant to provide under contract. And if the city doesn't hold them, hold those documents, it's very difficult for members of the public to make public records requests regarding that kind of work that is being done on behalf of the city. This has been an ongoing issue and something that we talk about a lot, and perhaps we can recommend to the full task force. I'm hearing some background noise. If you could press *6 if you're not intending to speak at this time, that would be helpful. I do agree that further discussion and perhaps further action is required. But as far as this motion goes, we've heard public comment. Unless you have further thoughts on this, I think we're ready to proceed with the vote. I'm still hearing background noise. If you're not speaking, if you could please mute your phone, we would appreciate it. And Ms. Leger, if you could please call the vote.
Chair LaHood?
Aye.
Chair LaHood, aye. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member Neighbors?
No.
Member Neighbors, no. Moved by Chair LaHood, seconded by Member Wong to close matter 19062. The motion is passed.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this discussion. We do appreciate hearing all of your thoughts. Ms. Leger, please call the next item.
Item number 7, file number 20082, complaint filed by Library Users Association against Mary Garaduzzi and the Library Commission for violating Administrative Code Section 6715 by failing to allow participation in public comment during a remote Library Commission meeting on July 9, 2020. On September 28, 2021, the committee asked Ms. Schaub and the Library Commission to allow their media services team perform a user interface testing with the WebEx system and make sure that the instructions on the agenda reflect the user experience, explore adding a helpline, and consider other ways of improving meetings that include identifying commission members and other staff as they speak and report back in writing within 4 weeks to the task force administrator, Mr. Warfield, and forward that information to the Compliance and Amendments Committee.
Okay, so Mr. Warfield, are you still here?
I am still here, and I would like to know what your procedure will be and the timing, who speaks first, and so on.
So, Mr. Warfield, hold on one moment. I will let you speak first, but I just want to verify who is here from the respondent. Is Ms. Schaub here today?
Yeah, hi, this is Margot Schaub, Library Affairs Commission analyst, and I have with me Bill Kolb, who's our digital strategist.
Okay, thank you for being here today. Mr. Warfield, since this is about compliance, we're not going to set a timer right now. I would like to hear what updates you've received, and then I'm going to give Ms. Schaub and her colleague a chance to speak second. Would you like to tell us what sorts of updates have you heard so far from Ms. Schaub and the Library Commission?
Well, if I was present in person, I would stand in silence. Since this is a remote meeting, I will say that as of today, which is exactly 4 weeks after last month's meeting, which was the deadline that you gave, within which you asked the library to provide a bunch of information, which I think the administrator has read from the agenda, very specifically, I've received nothing. My most recent check was shortly before the meeting began, and I've simply gotten nothing at all. As I said in the letter that I sent October 21st for inclusion in your agenda, it's on page 1517 and 1518. They did apparently change the rules for public comment or their explanation for it on their agenda, but I only got that because I looked for it online. As I mentioned in my letter, we didn't get a Library Commission agenda packet, which we routinely get by mail, at all at the time that I wrote the letter. It ended up arriving on Saturday after the Library Commission meeting and after the deadline for submitting materials. We also did not get what we usually get, which is separately an emailed version of the agenda, which likewise would have given us time to provide detailed instructions, or excuse me, explanations of what we would want to say. What I said in my letter was that the library has written a little more than 2 pages of instructions that I think are unnecessarily complicated. They also have other serious communication flaws and get to the phone instructions nearly a page down, so that you have to be at the bottom of page 2 and read a whole bunch of stuff about WebEx before you even realize, oh, here's where the instructions are for telephone participation. There's no phone number at the top, as you have and as every other agenda that I've seen from other departments has. There's nothing at the top even telling you what phone number to call, what the meeting ID is. That's just simply buried near the bottom of page 2 of the agenda. I noted in my letter that 2 members of the public at last month's meeting of your body, the Compliance and Amendments Committee, made excellent suggestions, including, for example, only starting the timer after what anonymous number 3 called administrivia. And I said, we presume that means such things as clarifying, can you hear me? And will you give me 30 seconds warning before time is up? Instead, they make it sound like a racetrack. The only thing they don't have is firing a gun. And go in with your caller number so-and-so, or in the case of last week's meeting, that was also they called me as anonymous speaker, and then on the second time they said caller number so-and-so. I didn't know who they were talking about specifically. I wanted to confirm that. So that was a suggestion made by Anonymous, and he also said 30 seconds. They nowhere near allow 30 seconds.
Oh, Ms. Leger, I told Mr. Warfield that he could speak without a timer, and I think he's almost done anyways, but please go ahead, Mr. Warfield.
I apologize, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan said that the library should do exactly what you do here at the Sunshine Task Force, which is dispense pretty much entirely with raised hand, lower hand, raised hand, lower hand, on, up, down, and with the whole issue of muting. And I think things run pretty well at the Sunshine Task Force by and large. And I don't see why the Library Commission couldn't do that. They have usually very few speakers. Often it's just one. I don't think there would be a problem. There certainly hasn't been a problem at real live meetings where people might be in a position to call out and so on. One of the things that I think is really problematic is that there's been no evidence whatsoever that the library has done anything to figure out what happened when I was denied my opportunity for public comment back in July. Nobody has questioned and nobody has provided information about what did the library do to find out what happened or what went wrong. And that is very troubling to me. They did claim at the Sunshine Task Force meeting that there were technical problems, but I requested from the head librarian, Michael Lambert, what those might have been and what they might have done to take some consideration to fix them and so on. And he wrote back saying he was aware of our complaint, but that there was no technical problem. So you're getting misleading and incorrect information from the Library Commission, whatever her title is. Secretary is what it has always been. And again, there's no evidence that they know what happened or why it happened or what any problem might have been or what might be done about it. I can tell you that in some respects, the October meeting was actually worse than previous meetings because repeatedly, I could tell you a bunch of problems, but repeatedly there were pauses taken with no indication of what you have to do to get into the queue for speaking. Press *3. No indication of what phone number to call, except I believe once at the very beginning of a 2-hour or so meeting. And again, no consistent call for a little additional time when there is a message that there's nobody left in the queue for speaking.
Thank you, Mr. Warfield. So actually, Member Wong, I know we want to hear from Ms. Shaw, but I'd like to sort of hand things off to you because I know you've taken a close look at this. If you would like to lead sort of the next phases of questioning, please do.
Yeah, I think I'd like to initially start off by hearing what Ms. Schaub and Bill Kolb have to say in terms of the changes that they believe that they have made here.
Hi, this is Margot Schaub. I'll start off by saying what we've done in response to responding to what you asked us to do, and then I'll have Bill come in and talk a little bit about our whole process, if that's okay.
That sounds good.
Okay, so in response, we have added significant amount of direction onto our agenda item, which I sent to Mr. Warfield in his commission package that he said he got. So I did send something to him. Before that, I sent the agenda with all the updated information on how to get into our meetings and how to make public comment to Cheryl. And she said, I'm paraphrasing, great, but as long as he can make public comment. And I said, I think I responded, he can. So that was kind of the first part of it. And then, so I did send him something. We did respond to the task force. And then, Bill, do you want to get into a little bit about how we run our meetings? Bill?
Hi, yeah, Margot.
Hi, I'm sorry,
Yep,
did you hear that?
Yeah, we can hear you. You can go ahead.
Well, I just responded. Did you hear my response, or do I need to say it again?
I unmuted myself and I was muted.
Okay, sorry.
This is Bill Kolb. Yeah, hi. This is Bill Kolb. I'm the library's digital strategist. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was tasked with finding a way for the library to conduct its commission meetings virtually at a distance for safety purposes. And I explored a number of options. I'm not sure how much of the background you want on that, but I worked with the city's Department of Technology to arrive at a solution. Initially, we were told that there was an option for a phone bridge, which I believe is the technology that's being used in conduct of this meeting. And we were told that that was technology that was failing and that it was unreliable and that we probably shouldn't emphasize it. They proposed an alternate solution, which was WebEx. This is an online meeting software that includes the options for people to participate virtually online using a computer or by phone. And that was deemed the best platform for us to allow the commission to continue to conduct its business. As I continue to explore that, I'll ask you to harken back to the early days of the pandemic when everybody was trying to do everything in Zoom or Google Meet or WebEx or what have you, the various platforms that were popping up all over the place. And there was this phenomenon called Zoom bombing, wherein people would do unpleasant or profane things during a Zoom meeting.
Interrupt you, Mr. Kolb.
Yeah.
I don't, we need to get into technical details. Like, I understand you all made the choice to go with WebEx. I'm mostly looking for what was done to make improvements to the process for phone call-in since our last meeting, I think a month ago.
Sure. I wasn't at the last meeting, but I can say that I worked closely with Ms. Schaub to write more explicit instructions to include with the agenda so that people were less likely to be confused if they were calling in to offer public comment. There were no technical changes to the setup. In the complaint, I see that it asked the media services team to perform a user interface testing with the WebEx system. That team reports to me. We conducted a thorough test of that system, and there's nothing wrong with it. It works exactly as intended and as is stated in our instructions.
Okay. And can I ask for a bit more detail around the test that was done? Like, did you have folks on your team call in to a live meeting via the phone and also test out public comment?
We did.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. There are currently 4 members of that team: the media services supervisor and 3 other technicians. One of them was on vacation, so it ended up being 4 of us who conducted the testing. And we ran a live meeting where we had various people on various forms of technology, all trying different ways to raise hand, and all of it was functional.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then I'm just curious if either you or Ms. Schaub had put some of these changes into writing. I didn't actually see any of that information in our packet. So I'm not sure if it was there and I just missed it.
No.
So again, there was no change. There was no change to the actual process. We just wrote even more explicit instructions, and those are included in the Library Commission's agenda packet. And I'm sorry, Margot, I think I talked over you.
That's okay. I was just going to say, I sent the agenda, which in my mind was the response to Cheryl, and I got an affirmative reaction, so I felt like we responded.
Okay. Yeah, I looked up the agenda for the commission myself, but I still don't see it in the packet. I don't know.
Can Cheryl weigh in and let her know that she did receive that from me as a response?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so that probably should have been in the packet, I guess. I mean, I don't know how it runs.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just taking a look at my notes here. So, I mean, I did see the improved instructions for the meeting calling in via the phone. I did see that it does note that if you press *3, it does potentially lower your hand. Something I might personally recommend is, I don't know, mentioning that can happen by accident. I have a question regarding that for Mr. Kolb. Does it always say that your hand has been lowered if you accidentally do it, or if it's been lowered by someone else on the call?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I did also notice that there was a removal of the piece about saying that you'll hear silence, since we know that the meeting continues to go on and you would be able to hear it. I think I'm going to move back to asking Mr. Warfield some questions. Are you still here, Mr. Warfield?
I am still here. If you can hear me okay, let me know.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. So I guess my question is, I think there are improved instructions. I understand that they're lower down on the page, but specifically on the instructions, do you think that they are an improvement, or how are you feeling about them?
I think the instructions are enormously complicated, and particularly since the whole procedure is not necessary. There's no reason to have up with the hands, down with the hands, mute, unmute. You guys usually have more people on average, certainly, than the Library Commission does. And as I understand it, you don't do any of that. You don't have any raising and lowering of hands. You don't have any mute or unmute. This whole procedure, frankly, looks like blame the victim. Okay, let's make a complicated procedure and even more complicated instructions. I haven't looked at the instructions in great detail because, as far as I'm concerned, they're just dizzying, especially when you compare it to what happens in a real live meeting or in these meetings. You call up, you put in the code number, and that's it. You're quote unquote in the meeting. And you speak, and that's it. And you don't have to worry about our hands up and hands down, or hands up and hands down, and hands up and hands down, and muting and unmuting, and so on. And keep in mind, if there's any noise in the background, if there's a momentary lapse of attention, that can have a big impact on whether you even understand where you are, or, for example, where am I in the queue? When you have a screen in front of you, you see the hands up icon, as I understand it, since I haven't been to a meeting in person, on the computer. But when you're on the phone, you don't have hands up, hands down. You have the opportunity to press *3 or press it again and try and understand what's being said by the system. I think it is really mechanistic and only a very partial view to say the system is working. Well, if the system is telling you what your status is while somebody is talking during the meeting, you may have no idea what's your status, just as an example. And so mechanistically testing something, I think, is a big mistake. It has to be tested in some real world function, or talk to people who use the thing. Nobody has ever asked me anything about what happened. And I'm sorry, if I'd like to say something about getting something with the agenda packet, that's just preposterous. I didn't even open the agenda packet when it came on Saturday. And why would I look at the packet for their statement of what they've done? Where's the helpline? Where's the test scripts and the test results of their testing? Where is that?
Right. So I guess
as well.
something I do want to mention, Mr. Warfield, is, I understand that it is like quite a different process from what we have here in the task force. And, they are using a different system completely. It is a standardized system that is used by other commissions and task forces that are part of the government. And so fortunately, we have to do the best that we can with the system that they're using. And so I know it's very complicated comparatively. I think, the main question here is we're looking definitely for improvements to what happened. So making sure that the instructions are clear enough so that you can participate. And because the system is so complicated, I think it requires a certain amount of instruction in order for folks to be able to participate in it. So I guess I have a couple of other questions for the last, were you able to attend the last meeting that the Library Commission held?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Yes, I was, indeed.
Okay.
And I have some things to say about that, because how you use the
Well, I have some specific questions for you, Mr. Warfield. So can you tell me, did the Library Commission pause their timer prior to commenters actually speaking, as you had mentioned that anonymous number 3 recommended?
No, certainly not. Well, wait a minute. No, they did not. They continuously short-timed me. Mm-hmm. And at one point, when I, for some reason, was muted, I didn't start for 25 or 30 seconds after they shot the gun and said, your 3 minutes begins now. And I specifically asked the chair I believe I asked whether she could hear me. And I certainly asked, will you start the timer at this moment now? And she said yes. So 30 seconds, 25 or 30 seconds before my time was up, they once again cut me off early.
Yeah. Okay. So that's helpful to know. I'm also curious, did the commission announce the number of callers in the queue? I think that was another recommendation we had made throughout the meeting.
Never. And that certainly would be helpful. Other things too, how many people are present? If there are 55 people present, which is the first time I ever heard them say that at the last meeting, they might say, if anybody wants to make public comment, here's what you do. They never, or almost never, said the simple thing of press *3. They wouldn't give the phone number and the meeting ID after the first time. And maybe they gave it sporadically someplace, but most of the time they did not. They didn't take the pause that they supposedly take, which is very short, maybe a little longer now. They didn't take the pause. They didn't say how long a pause they would take. And once they got the first or second time of an offering of an opportunity to get onto a queue that's empty, when the queue got finally empty, they skipped it. So they would do that once, maybe twice, but then when there was nobody in the queue, they wouldn't say it again. And I think you're here as an example, very conscientious about making sure that if there's nobody in the queue, are you sure, is there anybody else who would like to speak? They don't do that there.
Okay. And then I have a couple more questions about that meeting. Did the commission members and staff identify themselves before they spoke?
Almost never, if at all.
Okay.
And they don't even take they don't even take a proper roll call. They start with a roll call and they say so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so are present. And you can't even hear their voices.
Mm-hmm. And the last question I have is, did the commission members and staff, when folks were making public comment, did they have identifiers for the callers outside of a number that maybe the caller didn't know about?
I'm not sure what you're asking. Did they refer to me in any fashion other than caller number such and such or anonymous caller?
Yeah, just did the commission identify you or other folks in a way that you understood it was your turn to speak?
No, other than if you want to say that once you call me caller number 8, maybe I should imagine that the next time they say number 8, that's me. But there's no reason why I should understand that's the case. Let me say that in this meeting, the very first reference to me was, all right, Mr. Anonymous Caller. Mr. Anonymous Caller, your time begins, your 3 minutes begins now. And then the next time I was caller number something or another. So there were 2 different names they had for me. I certainly didn't hang up or change anything. I was on the line solidly the whole time.
Okay. Thank you for your input, Mr. Warfield. I'd like to confer with my committee members. I feel like there's
for us to respond to that.
Yeah, we can give you some time to respond to some of those questions. Are there things that happened at this previous meeting that you feel were changed or updated or improved in those respects?
This is Bill Kolb again. Member Wong, can I address some of the points that Mr. Warfield just made?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So he is concerned that we don't announce the number of callers in the queue before we start taking public comment, and that is because we can't. It's a dynamic process in which people are allowed to join the queue throughout the course of public comment, so that number changes constantly. And he also said that there is no time at the end of the last public comment for each agenda item during which the meeting pauses to allow additional people to join the queue. The commission president explicitly calls that out and says, let's just wait a moment and see if anyone else wants to join the queue to comment. And she says that after every section of public comment that we conduct. So what he said was factually untrue. And also when he or other people who have offered public comment have asked, is that me? Because the screen says anonymous caller 8 or anonymous caller 15. That's what it says on our screen, and that's the only way that we know to identify someone who is called in. Whenever questioned, the commission president always specifically says, yes, we can hear you. Please make your comment. So those were just a couple of things that I sort of made note of while he was speaking.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess...
And you had asked one question, do the commissioners say their names? The president of the commission calls on each commissioner by name when they have something to say or when they're in discussion, when they make a comment.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess what I'm kind of looking for is almost like a copy of what we do at times in our meetings, where we, we get everyone we can into the queue, as soon as possible. And once we have folks in the queue, we know how many folks are in it. And so it can be a dynamic process. I understand that. But for us, it's like a matter of getting that total number so we can keep track. And then so we can, folks can keep track of the number that they are, or the caller number that they are, in other words. I think, having that pause at the end of public comment in order to take in any other further commenters makes sense. And I did see that in the packet as well. I know that was a comment as something that you all had improved on the commission side, but hadn't been doing prior to this last meeting. So I appreciate that change. I do feel that there are some improvements that can be made to the process still. And I think there are some things that could be documented. I'd like to confer with my committee members to see if they have any comments or questions as well.
I would appreciate having a chance to comment on Mr. Kolb's comment.
Member Wong, I don't know if you want to hear from Mr. Warfield first. I can hold my question.
I think I'd like to hear from Chair LaHood first.
So I do have a question regarding what Mr. Warfield said about that he received the packet in the mail after the meeting happened. I'm curious about when those get mailed out. I do know that there have been delays with the Postal Service, but also he said that he typically receives an email version as well, and that he said he did not receive one this time. I'm curious to know who's responsible for sending those out, and if you know whether it was sent out for the last meeting, or whether that was a general oversight, or if we know why Mr. Warfield did not receive the email version of the packet.
This is Margot again. I always, or for the most part, send out the commission packets a week ahead of time to make sure that we get them to folks in time. And I understand the mail slowed down, but that's, we try to accommodate that through doing it the Thursday before our commission meeting. So they go out before 12 that day. And I'd have to go back and look at, I've been sending Mr. Warfield packets since I started, which will be almost a year in November. So if he didn't get them, it was an oversight, but I will double check my email because it's just something on my checklist that I do, and I send it out before end of day. So, but sometimes I think because he has a Yahoo account, it can bounce back, but that's only happened once, and I didn't get a bounce back, so.
Okay. Thank you for confirming that. So, Member Wong, thank you for your thorough range of questions. That was great. What are your thoughts on this? It sounds like some of the things that we requested, it sounds like we're done. Other things, maybe the response was perhaps not exactly what we had in mind, but something in that vein. What are your thoughts on this?
I guess my thoughts right now is I am leaning towards continuing to monitor this case. I think there are a few improvements I'd specifically like to ask for. And this is more, I would say, a discussion with the three of you than a motion currently. But I definitely would want to see if it was possible to get more of those improvements in writing, because I know we didn't get all of them into our packet. I think it would be great if Mr. Kolb could look into if there's a better way to identify folks who are in the phone queue to ensure that they know that it is them that is supposed to be speaking at this next juncture. I think also instituting the suggestion by anonymous number 3 to pause. If folks are asking, can you hear me? Am I next? Like, I don't think the timer should start until after those questions have been asked and confirmed. So making sure that happens. And then also ensuring that you tell folks to press *3 or reminding them to press *3 at public comment time. Say, as we do here, we say it's your turn to speak. If we can't hear someone, make sure you press *6 in order to unmute yourself. So definitely looking for a couple of those things in our continued monitoring here.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah. How much time are you looking to put this particular matter over? 2 months, 3 months, to allow the library to catch up with some of these requests and suggestions? You have a time frame here.
I think we have a little more a conversation before we can determine that. I think we have a few more questions to discuss amongst ourselves, but we will make sure that we're specific when we make the recommendation.
Member Wong, this is Bill Kolb again. Could I ask a question about one of the improvements that you suggested?
Sure, go ahead.
You asked if there was a better way to identify folks in the phone queue, and I want to know if this might be acceptable, because it's certainly something that we could look at implementing. I've been in other meetings with call-in people where they're identified by the last four digits of their phone number. We initially did not implement that because we wanted to value people's sort of phone privacy, but that's the only other identifying information that's provided to us through the technology.
Yeah, I think that would be acceptable and an easy way to do that. That's something that we do in this meeting as well, especially when we need folks to mute themselves, actually. And that is information that we have on our end for folks who call in. So I think that would be acceptable.
Okay, thank you. I can work with Ms. Schaub to address that. I just wanted to make sure that we were headed in the right direction if we were trying to make a correction to meet your suggestion.
Awesome. Yeah, so committee members, any other questions, discussions, thoughts?
I like your suggestion for continuing to monitor this. I do want to. I want to thank the Library Commission for testing their system, reviewing some of the procedures. I do agree that given Mr. Warfield's access concerns, I don't think we're quite there yet. I am wondering if it would be actually, Ms. Schaub, can you tell us when is the next commission hearing?
November 19th, I believe.
November 19th.
I have to look at the calendar.
I believe it's the 18th. I was just looking.
Sorry, it's the 18th. I just have to look at the calendar.
And something that what day of the week is that?
Yeah, it's the 18th.
And that
is the 18th.
I'm even wondering if it might be helpful for one of us to attend and sort of get a sense of what that experience is like. And I'm seeing some nodding from committee members. I think that might be helpful. Mr. Warfield, I'm just going to jump in. Mr. Warfield, what do you think of that?
I'm not at all happy. This is more than a year. This is one of the most important aspects of democracy, and they have not done what you asked for. I have here, you have it in your agenda. Where is the evidence? There was nothing delivered to me as requested. I specifically asked you at the time last month, is it coming in writing? They're supposed to report back within 4 weeks in writing to the administrator and to me. And they did not do that. They could have done it by sending an email, by sending a letter, to bury anything that they've done with a pile of papers, agenda packets, agendas, plans for reopening the library, without any indication on the envelope. That, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty well close to concealing it. And the email that didn't come is also very peculiar. There were 3 things that were specifically requested, and none of them has happened, and you haven't discussed that yet. Where is the evidence of the user interface testing, so-called? Where is the evidence of any kind of effort to establish a helpline? Where is there any evidence of the the change of instructions, I suppose you could say, came with the agenda, but that isn't sending you or me changes. I'd also like to very much object to some of the things that have been said previously. I do not think that they're doing well at all, particularly when you listen to the recording. First of all, I think the last 4 digits of a phone number is completely intrusive and not necessary. If they had a helpline, or if they would simply say, how would you like to be referred to when we call on you again? That would be a very simple way to do it without busting anybody's privacy with phone numbers or pretending you can't do this any other way. With respect to some of the things that Mr. Kolb said, I didn't express concern about the number of callers in the queue not being there, but in fact, I think it's a very important and valuable thing. If they say, let's have public comment, and then there's silence, I don't know whether anybody's in the queue. If they would say there's one person in the queue, maybe I would assume it's me, and then when I'm unmuted, I would speak. But if I heard one person in the queue and now I didn't hear next person, well, if I heard one person is in the queue and it's not calling on me, then I have a clue to press *3 to get in the queue. And what I said with respect to what Mr. Kolb described as untrue is wrong and untrue. What I said, and you've had it happen here, I believe, at this meeting. You call for public comment, and one person registers for public comment. You take that person, and now you say, is there anybody else? So your queue is 0. You ask now for the first time, is there anybody else? So now, I don't know, I say Warfield. Then you take my comment. And if there's nobody in the queue, you say it again. Is there anybody else? There's nobody in the queue. Is anybody else wanting to make public comment? That, I think, is the fair way to let people know. You also have to say, what does a person have to do to make public comment? They have said practically nothing. Maybe once or twice at that last meeting on 7, 8 items. Not only did they not give the phone number and the meeting ID, they didn't even say to press *3 if you want to make public comment. If somebody hurried into the meeting and didn't listen at the very beginning, most people don't come in exactly on time. Most people don't remember all the details. There's no reason why it shouldn't be obvious right at the moment when you're taking public comment. They also don't say what they're talking about. Today, I was not sure what you were taking public comment on. So you told me. Thank you. There, you don't even hear what the item is. I don't see that there's any sense in which folks have actually tried, and you asked for it in writing, that anybody has tried or experienced or even talked to people who had problems with their system, which includes the tech. So, there's a great deal they could do if they would sit down and think about it and document it, including the script that the chair would or perhaps should read. Also, the pauses are way too short. I've been in a situation where I pressed *3, all of a sudden I'm out of the queue. And there's all this rigmarole that they speak. Nobody is timing how long the message is. And if there's any talk above the message, well, now you can't understand it. So now you press the other one. And do you press in the middle of the message, or do you wait till the message is over to make sure you've effectuated your *3? None of that is clear when you're on the phone. And they need to allow time. Anonymous 3 said 30 seconds. Ask them how long they take. I would estimate possibly now 10 seconds. But there is no clarity as to how long or consistency as to what they're doing there. And there's a great deal they could do and should do and have been told and understand or should understand, and it's been more than a year. I think it's appalling.
Well, Mr. Warfield, thank you for thank you for your comments and for working with us on this. I think part of the reason, and I'll let her speak for herself, but I think part of the reason Member Wong was suggesting that we continue this is because we do think that there's more to do on this in terms of compliance, and that's why we want to continue things. Member Wong, I'd like to hand it back to you, since you had that very specific list of things that we had requested. I don't know if you were keeping track in terms of checking off what has been done versus not done, or if there's enough that still needs to be done that we should. What are your thoughts at this point? Sorry, I caught you at a bad moment.
No problem. So I think I have a list of things which includes some of the things that Mr. Warfield mentioned, such as getting that information in writing. I have being able to announce the number of callers that are in the queue. And so that requires, the Library Commission to take public commenters into the queue prior to starting public comment. Also, like I mentioned, looking for a better way to identify folks in the phone queue, which is something we just discussed with Mr. Cole. And I think Mr. Warfield brings up a great point that there can be privacy concerns with reading that information out. So potentially looking into other optional ways of identifying folks outside of just anonymous caller number 3, or requiring folks to, give themselves an identifier that they can continue to be referred to for the rest of the meeting, even if that is anonymous. And then ensuring to tell folks to press *3 at the beginning of every public comment section. I think, and then the last thing Mr. Warfield mentioned, which we didn't touch on yet, which was, looking into the possibility of creating a helpline or working potentially with WebEx to see if they have folks on their side that can help people who are having technical issues. So that's my list of things. I don't know if that's too long to specifically list out. Well, then, of course, the 3 of us will have to figure out between us who wants to attend this upcoming commission meeting, or at least part of it. Maybe we can split it up as well.
Yes. So, Ms. Leger, did you get that whole list?
Let's see. Have a list of things that includes Mr. Warfield's suggestion in the beginning to announce callers in the queue. Also looking for a better way to identify people in the comment queue, not necessarily by their telephone numbers, and repeating to ask if there are other public commenters, and look into a helpline for those with issues. Did I get that right, Member Wong?
Yeah, I think, did we mention ensuring that we mentioned, or they mentioned pressing *3 in order to unmute or mute themselves?
I think we need to add that. And Member Wong had suggested that be repeated before every public comment section.
Okay, I'll put that as a bullet points in there in a minute. Those are suggested improvement. Those are improvement suggestions.
Yeah, so in terms of a motion for us, it seems like, Member Wong, I think that was a great list, and I don't know if you want to make the motion that, perhaps we continue this matter to our next meeting. And Ms. Leger, you had asked how far out do we want to push this. I think with things like this, it's best if we stay on it meeting to meeting, because I think we're more effective at working with departments and agencies and commissions if we don't let too much time lapse in between, if additional time is not required to get the things done. I think it's actually more helpful for all parties if we work on this in back-to-back meetings. And I would say, Member Wong, I'll let you state it, but I think looking at, our initial request to the Library Commission, these, emphasizing these bullet points as things that still need to be done. And I don't know if there's any sort of, saying that we want to circle back on and get a progress update on all of these things at our next meeting. But perhaps, do we want, since we had asked for it before, an update in writing about what has been done so far, and perhaps that could be provided, within a week.
Yeah, this is Member Wong again. That sounds great to me. I would definitely like to see a little bit more detail about, what steps we're taking in that, system testing by Mr. Kolb's team too. That's just the software engineer in me. We've got, very rigorous user testing plans that we have to go through. So.
May I ask if anything was received in writing regarding what was requested last month? I still don't understand whether anybody got anything from the Library Commission regarding what was requested as stated in the agenda item, the helpline, the user testing, and there was a third thing. There were very specific things. Did anything come in writing?
Ms. Leger, you said that you had received something, and I am looking through my email. Sometimes it's a little bit, I know you do forward things to me, but sometimes it's a bit difficult to find. It's a bit difficult to find items that have been forwarded because I don't see the original sender's name. Did you say that you did recall receiving something?
I'm looking through my list right now. Most of the stuff that I have gotten current has been from Peter Warfield.
This is
in the file.
This is Member Wong. So there is one email that I saw, and it is on page P1533 or page 91 of the packet. I think that email was sent last Wednesday, October 20th, and really the main mention of something that changed in the meetings was instituting the pause during public comment at the end of public comment when the queue is closed in order to allow more folks to join the queue. I don't see any other updates outside of that. And there is a mention that Mr. Kolb would be joining this meeting as well.
Cheryl, can you pull up the email that I sent you, which had the updated agenda, which I was asking you if that was the appropriate response? Because we did respond, so I really want that to be part of this record.
Do you remember the date that you sent it?
I can find out, but not in time for this meeting to end. I think it'd be easier for you to search your email. But you said you remember it. I just don't know how much.
Yeah. Ms. Shaw, we see the email, and I see that there's an attachment on the email. So
okay.
We have verification that you did send it. I'm trying to see if we have the attachment. I don't know that the attachment is in our file.
Okay.
I don't see anything for Library Users Association on page 1533.
Oh, that is correct. It is not Library Users Association was not CC'd on this.
That was specifically requested last month.
Can you give me a date?
Yes, this was sent on the initial email was sent on Wednesday, October 20th, and there was a follow-up saying Bill is the library's digital strategist if you need his proper title. Oh, and actually, the attachment was sent on the 18th. Nope, October 20th.
I don't see any attachments attached to this stuff. I mean, I see a name of an attachment, but I don't see a document.
Yeah, that is correct. Mr. Warfield, I see the same thing.
Yep, and I am seeing in my queue 4 emails from Ms. Schaub, and I don't know how they didn't get in there, but I'm terribly sorry. I can send it to you all now if you'd like.
If you could send it to us, and if you could forward those to us and to Mr. Warfield, this will be part that way, and then make sure that they're included in the agenda packet for the next meeting. I think this will help. I think this will help everyone in terms of tracking what has been accomplished and what still needs to be done. So on that note, Member Wong, would you like to make a motion? And then we can see if we can get a second and then open this up for public comment, because I think there might be other people who have ideas that they want to share with us on this matter.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to continue monitoring this file until the next CNA meeting. And the things that we will be looking to monitor were in that list. So getting more information in writing on the improvements sent to our administrator, Ms. Leger, and Mr. Warfield. Announcing the number of callers in the queue at the beginning of each public comment section. Looking into a way of better identifying folks who are looking to make public comment without revealing their identities if they so wish to remain anonymous. Reminding folks to press *3 at the beginning of every public comment. And also looking into a potential helpline, whether that is through the Library Commission or through WebEx. I think that's the end of my motion.
Okay, I didn't get all helpline. All right. To continue monitoring the file until the next compliance meeting and have those which records sent to let's see, what I have written is moved by Member Wong to continue monitoring the file until the next Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting. And we are looking to monitor on this and have those sent to Ms. Leger and Mr. Warfield, the announcement of callers in the queue, looking for callers to be identified not just by their telephone numbers, looking to establish a helpline, and there was a 4th item.
So the thing about forwarding, the emails that Ms. Schaub had sent you, we would like those forwarded with attachments to the committee and to Mr. Warfield. Anything that was an update on the status of what they've done. If it's just communication about attending this hearing, that's not necessarily as important. But anything, if among those 4 emails, anything, any emails that deal with progress updates, and we want attachments included.
In writing with a deadline and no phone numbers, please. It's a great privacy intrusion, and it's completely unnecessary.
I also would say I don't think we need to specifically say establish a helpline. I think they need to do research into if that's possible first.
Agreed.
Okay, who wants to second that?
This is Member Neighbors. I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. We'll take public comment on this motion from members of the public who are not party to this case. Would anyone like to make public comment?
Sullivan.
Mr. Sullivan, you are first in line. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment on this motion? I'm not hearing anyone. We'll let Mr. Sullivan speak, and then I will ask after he's finished if there's anyone else. If you are trying to say something and you don't hear me calling out your name, you may be on mute. Remember, it's *6 both to mute and unmute yourself. Ms. Leger, when you're ready with the timer, please let Mr. Sullivan know, and we'll hear from him first.
Mr. Sullivan, are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, before I get to the meat of my comments, I would like to suggest to the Library Commission that they move their phone number and how to access their meetings to the top of the agenda, right next to the date and time that the agenda is taken instead of way down low. The other thing, so I don't know if you've ever conferred with the mayor's Office on Disability or any other ADA organization, but I would suggest doing that. The Brown Act 54953.2, all meetings of a legislative body or local agency that are open in public shall meet the protections and prohibitions contained in Section 202 of the American with Disabilities Act of 1990 and the federal rules and regulations adopted in implementation thereof. And it's kind of questionable whether you guys, your process is actually complying. Also, the Brown Act 54954.1 goes to disabilities receiving agendas and copies of all documents in a packet. The only Sunshine Ordinance, Section 67.13, barriers to attendance prohibited. It's a little weaker on the like teleconferencing stuff. But anyway, that's my comments. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment on this motion? I'm not hearing anyone. This is last call. If you're speaking, I don't hear you. You'll need to press *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, I think that is it for public comment. I think,
Vote.
Sorry?
I think we're ready for a vote.
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge the sage advice about considering access requirements and ADA requirements, which I think we should keep in mind, especially as we make suggestions for changes in terms of access. So thank you for those comments. Ms. Leger, please call the vote.
Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Chair LaHood?
Aye.
Chair LaHood, aye. Moved by Member Wong, second by Member Neighbors to continue monitoring the file until the next Compliance and Amendments Committee hearing. And we are looking to have the email sent by Ms. Schaub to be sent to the committee and Mr. Warfield on the status of what they have done and the attachments included, and have those, say it again, have those sent to Ms. Leger and Mr. Warfield, the announcement of the number of callers in the queue, looking to identify not just by their telephone numbers, and looking to possibly establish a helpline.
And just to be clear, you weren't asking for the number of callers in the queue to be sent to you, but that these are items that we're seeking improvement on.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
While Ms. Leger is finishing that up, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Warfield and Ms. Schaub and Mr. Kolb. We appreciate you working with us on this to address Mr. Warfield's concerns, because we want to make sure that the public access to meetings is a top priority for the task force and for this committee, and we appreciate you all taking this very seriously.
Sure. Can I ask one clarifying question?
Sure.
Am I sending it again to Cheryl and she'll share it with you and I'll send it to Mr. Warfield, or is Cheryl sending what I already sent to all the people you just asked to get it?
Cheryl is going to send us and Mr. Warfield what you sent with the attachments.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's okay. And Cheryl, I know you're finishing up typing there, but whenever you're ready, I think we are ready for the next item.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
That's okay.
I just want to make sure I got this down correctly.
I know. We added a lot of extra bullet points on that one.
Yeah. Item number 8, file number 21111. Complaint filed by Carl Kramer against Doug Yackel and the San Francisco Airport Commission for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721 by failing to respond to a records request in a timely and/or complete manner.
Okay, so this is a new item that is coming to us first. We'll be determining jurisdiction and also hearing we're not doing a full hearing. That would, if we find jurisdiction, that could happen at the full task force, but we want to hear a little bit about the case to make sure that we have enough information if we think it should move forward. I would like member neighbors to lead questioning on this, but since this is the first time, I think what we're going to do is hear from, actually, I should ask first, is Carl Kramer, is Mr. Kramer here?
I'm here.
Okay, Mr. Kramer is here. And is Mr., and am I saying your name correctly, Mr. Yackel here, or someone from the Airport Commission here today?
Doug Yackel is here.
Yekel, I apologize. Mr. Yekel, thank you for being here. What we're going to do is first give Mr. Kramer 5 minutes, and then Mr. Yekel, you'll have 5 minutes to respond. So, Ms. Leger, when you're ready with the timer, please let Mr. Kramer know. Mr. Kramer, you'll have 5 minutes.
Mr. Kramer, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Cheryl. So our student intern, Chamai, had sent an initial request for copies of contracts with American Airlines and United Airlines, and also with Avis and Starbucks. And then July 19th, and you'll see this on pages 1564 to 65, response from Doug Yekel that he's sending the contracts for Avis and Starbucks, but he needs more time for American Airlines and United Airlines, and he would update the response in a week. July 26th, he sent an email, and you'll see it on pages 1563 to 64, acknowledging the request for contracts and requesting additional time. And then Chinmay sent a follow-up request on August 18th, and you'll see that on pages 1563. And then on August 25th, she filed a complaint, and you'll see that on pages 1560 to 61. In the respondent's information, and you'll see on page 1572, he says that he's sending an email to Ephraim Roa on July 29th. The email is addressed to Chinmay, and it's saying that this is the final response, and within it he refers to a July 19th response that provided copies of the contract. Page 1574, he, in responding to Cheryl, he says that the August 18th request, follow-up request by Chinmay was misinterpreted as a statement that the records were received. So this may be just a matter of miscommunication, and things appear that they didn't reach the right people. We also that Chinmay had sent a request having the email of additional person to send a response, just to make sure that somebody receives the response. So our interest in this is that we just want to get the information. So if those two contracts were sent, we would like to receive them. And I think that Chinmay has now returned to her classes, and so the best thing would be to send it directly to sflivingwage@gmail.com.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Mr. Yekel, you have 5 minutes to respond.
Just a
Thank
second.
you very much.
Hang on, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just wanted to set the timer for you. Are you ready, sir?
You. Yes, I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, and I agree that I think perhaps what we have here is records being submitted in a timely manner and not getting to the right place. Mr. Kramer walked through the timeline. It's correct. We made our first response on July 19th, advised that we would need additional time for the United Airlines and American Airlines records, and that I would follow up in a week. I did follow up in a week on July 26th. And 3 days later, on July 29th, I sent Chinmay the United Airlines and American Airlines records through a secure file transfer email link. Because of the size of the files, these could not be sent through regular email. This system has an expiration within 30 days, and the files were never accessed through that system by Chinmai. And when we talk about the misinterpretation of the August 18th, I would agree with that. When I received that August 18th, I thought it was merely thanking me for receipt of the documents. I misinterpreted that. I didn't realize that she had not yet received them at that time. Had I read that properly, I would have advised her that we sent these via secure file transfer on July 29th. We retransmitted those documents to Chinmai, but if she's no longer with you, we'll submit those remaining documents to the sflivingwage@gmail.com address. Thank you.
Member Neighbors, I'd like to hand things off to you.
Thanks. I wanted to just double check. It sounds like things are close to being resolved in terms of the documents themselves, but I wanted to check in terms of the timeline to see if there was still an issue with timeliness that we needed to address. So I wanted to ask Mr. Kramer, in the timeline when Chinmai sent her first request, what was the date of that first request?
July 2nd.
Okay, and then the response to that, was it, how many days passed between her request and the first response you got from Mr. Yackel?
Well, she received a response July 19th, so that'd be would be 17 days.
Okay, so there was a 17-day gap there. And after that, it seemed like things were moving along pretty quickly now that we found out that part of the issue was that there was a misunderstanding about the transmission of the last group of documents. So, Mr. Yackel, are you making a claim or denying a claim that there was a timeliness issue in the first between the first date of the request and your response between July 2nd and July 19th, that's 17 days?
So in terms of the timeline, the July 2nd request was sent to our design and construction team, and that request didn't make it to our office for action until July 8th. So July 19th was a Monday, so that was 10 days from our first receipt of it, but I can't disagree that there was a timeliness concern internally in terms of getting it into the right hands.
Okay. And then who is, I had seen the same thing that Mr. Kramer saw when in that file transfer of those last two large PDFs. The address on that is not to Chinmai. Who is that? Was it addressed wrong, or is that like an alias you use for this system, or what happened with that? With the, I can't remember, begins with an E, but it's the salutation is to Chinmai, but the email is to Efren Roa at flysfo.com.
Efren is a part of my team.
So this email that was dated July 29th that says hello Chinmai, but it's sent to Efren, did this go to Chinmai also?
It did, and Efren was copied in on what I sent to Chinmai.
Where can we find, so maybe you can explain how it works down there. So after the email, it says sender, and then there's a link, and then it says her address. Is that how the system works? Is that the transfer, how the transfer system works?
Yeah, the way it works is anybody that is addressed in a transmission, I would get a notification when any of the recipients accessed it. So copying in my staff member Efren on it, I got I think what you're looking at is a confirmation that he opened up the message that I sent to Chinmayi, but I never got a similar message like that from Chinmayi, which indicates that Chinmayi never actually accessed what we sent her.
I see. So for your packet, that's the piece that you brought in to show us, because she didn't open it. The system didn't generate like a receipt for her.
That's correct. And also, if we run a report on unopened files, it would show it that as being one of the ones that was never opened.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like there's a potential exchange of document, the last two PDFs that can happen that Mr. Kramer will be happy to receive. But we have some discussion, maybe, members, about the first timeliness issue. So what are we thinking about that?
Yeah, member neighbors, I would say I think your assessment is accurate here, and I do appreciate first of all, it sounds like Mr. Yackel did send the documents, although they were not received. We would appreciate, Mr. Yackel, if you could initiate a similar file transfer directly to Mr. Kramer at the email address he requested, which I think will resolve that part of it. We do have a timeliness issue on this, and I understand how it happened, but it did happen. And because it seems evident that it did and no one is disputing that, I do think we need to forward this complaint to the full task force. But it does not, especially if the files are delivered to Mr. Kramer, I don't think that this will be I think this case can be resolved relatively quickly in light of all that. Mr. Kramer, could you again state the email address that you would like for Mr. Yackel to initiate the new file transfer? What email address should he use?
S is in San, F is in Francisco, livingwage@gmail.
Okay.
Got it.
So SF Living Wage.
And member neighbors, since you directed this, do you have a motion that you would like to make?
I do. I'll make a motion to find that the SOTF has jurisdiction, that the records requested are public, and to refer the matter to the SOTF for hearing, and to request that the SOTF find a violation of Administrative Code 67.21 for timeliness of response.
Okay. Member Wong, anything to add, or a second, or? And I'll second.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Let's open this up for public comment from members of the public who are not party to this case. Would anyone like to make public comment on this motion? I'm not hearing anyone. Remember, if I'm not calling your name, it means I can't hear you. You might be on mute. You should press *6. Okay, I'm not hearing anyone. This is the last call for public comment on this motion. Okay, hearing none. Cheryl, Ms. Leger, please call the vote.
Member neighbors?
Aye.
Member neighbors, aye. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Chair LaHood?
Aye.
Chair LaHood, aye. Moved by member neighbors, second by member Wong, to find that there is jurisdiction, that the requested records are public, and refer the matter to the task force for hearing with the request that the task force find a violation of 6721 for timeliness.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kramer, Mr. Yackel, we appreciate you being here. Thank you. You'll hear from Ms. Leger with further instructions.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Leger, please. Thank you. Ms. Leger, please call the next item.
Item number 9, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by members of the Compliance Amendments Committee. Did I hear someone?
Is someone speaking? I think it may have been someone leaving the call.
Okay. Shall I read it again?
Yes, please.
Item number 9, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by members of the Compliance and Amendments Committee. Ladies? Anything you need me to do for you?
No, I don't have anything I need you to do for me, but I did want to say that I appreciated our format change tonight. I thought that worked really well. It's 7:30. We're doing a good job, and so yeah, I just want to give that a thumbs up.
Me too. This was Chair Wolf suggested that we do this, and I'm like, why didn't we think of that before? I think it's really helpful because I know, when we're all reading through the whole agenda, but I think having us sort of split up and specialize, I think really means that at least one of us can do a deep dive into each case, and I think it's extremely helpful. I'm glad that it seems like there's that we concur on this, and I think this is what we're going to do going forward. So thank you. Anything else?
Unless Cheryl objects that we're ending the meeting too early, then I want to rethink it.
I mean, she likes staying until 10 p.m.
Okay. Should we take public comment?
Yes, let's take public comment on this. Is there anyone else who anyone who'd like to make public comment on our recent statement, specifically about, if you didn't notice, we did a little bit of format change where I handed things off to other members for specific cases. Would anyone like to make public comment? I'm not hearing anyone, but I've got my, Mr. Sullivan. We would love to hear from you. Mr. Sullivan, we're going to, Ms. Leger will start this timer. You'll have public comment. And then after you speak, I'll see if there's anyone else who would like to make comment on this. Ms. Leger, when you're ready, please let Mr. Sullivan know.
Mr. Sullivan, are you ready?
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
All I'm going to say is good job. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment on this last item? I'm not hearing anyone. Last call for public comment. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. I'm not hearing anyone, and I'm seeing the numbers disappear. So I think people are, I think they're headed home. Thank you. I thought this was a good meeting. I appreciate everyone's participation. Ms. Leger, I think.
Last item.
Sorry. Next item, please. Yes.
Item number 10, adjournment. I have 7:33.
Great. Do we have a motion?
I move we adjourn. This is Member Neighbors. Let's go.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll take my acclamation. Thank you, everyone. It was good to see you. I'm really happy with this too. See you next week.
All right. Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Victor, you want to hang out? I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.